Gonna get started in a second, everybody. There he is. Let me add you. Adding Josh Lowe right now, everybody. Josh, can you hear the music, or is it just me?
I can hear it.
You can hear it. Okay, so it's working. Sometimes it doesn't work. All right, let me fade this out here and let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome to our Instagram Live. We're going to talk about how to unblind yourself, especially in the age of AI. And I'm joined today by Josh Lowe, a friend of mine, a member of our community, and somebody that I've met IRL in real life. I've been on this podcast. Josh has a number of things he wants us to talk about today. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Give me some emojis here if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Is it all good? We hear it. Hey, Chris. Hey, Sammy. How are you? Good to see you. Okay, Josh, let's get right into it. What are we talking about today, and how do you want to structure this?
All right. Well, this is a little preview of the conversation we're going to have when we have you in Vancouver on July 26th. So I thought we'd just kick it off, talk about personal branding in the age of AI. So, Chris, if you don't mind, I'd love to open up from one Asian to another and talk about economics first.
Okay.
So basically, I mean, we're with AI, we're going through just a massive paradigm shift, and it's changing how value is created. So as you know, economy is built on like a scarcity model with supply and demand and how it governs pricing. So like the more scarce something is, the more costly, therefore the more valuable. So with AI, automation, and like the cost of information dropping to nearly zero these days, it seems like we're stepping into a world of abundance. So like the tools are faster, things are cheaper to produce, it's smarter. The amount of products are being made so fast, it's crazy. So I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, what kind of economy are we entering as this unfolds, and like what will be valuable? And so ChatGPT churned out and it said the new scarcity now is authentic expression, deep relationships, curated wisdom, and then reputation and proof of action, which I thought was very coincidental, and it falls under personal branding. So I'd love to hear from your take on this, Chris. Like in a time where AI is shaping how we work and live and create, what does it really mean to build a personal brand that matters?
I think, first of all, we need to understand something. We're on the edge of the old world and the new world, and there's this threshold that exists between. And it's amazing that we live in a time in which a couple of years ago, no one's talking about AI. And now we're living in a time when you can't have a conversation without AI. And it feels as if there's two icebergs, and we have our foot on one and our foot on the other. And if we don't pick a side, we're going to get split in half. And we're hesitant or reluctant to pick a side because making decisions is really hard. And I want to reassure everybody who's listening about this one thing, which is where have these paradigm shifts happened before, and how have we navigated that world? So there was a point in our lives in the early, I guess, 1900s, early 20th century, that we're living mostly an agrarian lifestyle. We're living on farms. Everything we consume, we make ourselves, including our food, our clothing, and we're pretty self-sufficient. And then we get into the Industrial Revolution, where things are being made and in factories in faraway places, and they need workers. We move away from the farms and we move into cities and the suburbs, and we start living. When we start losing all of these skill sets, we start to specialize in things. And so that was a big paradigm shift. And in those moments, there were people who stayed on the farm and said, hey, I want to stay here. I don't really understand this new thing and that fast city lifestyle. I don't want any of that. And we can see how this plays out. So today, I'm sure there are fewer farmers than there have ever been in the history of humankind. And then we go from the Industrial Revolution, and there's this thing, it's called the internet. It gets invented, and we're scared of it, and all the things that come up with that. Computers are invented, and we're scared of that too, and the computer's going to replace us as well. And computers did create a massive amount of displacement in terms of desktop publishing, desktop design, and we're moving to digital space, digital video versus film. It goes on and on and on. So all I'm telling you is we've been here before. The most beautiful thing about the human mind is its capacity to evolve and change. But for whatever reason, when we're on one iceberg looking at the other iceberg that's coming, we can't see it for what it is, which is an opportunity. We just see it for the obstacle, the thing that disrupts our lives. Now, You could argue that things are happening really fast, faster than they've ever happened, and that's true. And when we look back on this in 5, 10, or 15 years, we'll say to ourselves, surprisingly, oh, 15, 20 years ago, it was the slowest it ever was. Things are only getting faster. So I'm not one to sit there and say, like, let me try and swim against the tide. What happens? We get tired in the tide. And so I think we just need to understand what's happening and figure out how best to navigate this world. Okay. I'm not going to tell you that AI isn't going to be a great displacement. It is. It is making information cheap. And the new luxury will be the ability to do things slowly and to enjoy well-crafted things made by human beings. So when a machine can 3D print out a object for you, you'll pay more for John or Mary to make that out of stone or whatever it is. The exact same thing, but made by a human. You'll pay more for it because you will say to yourself, I can afford it, and that's what I want.
Interesting. Okay, so what would you say to someone who feels like they've missed the boat, that it's too late to build a brand in the age of AI and just trying to catch up?
Well, I believe that is a self-fulfilling defeatist point of view. It always feels like it's too late. The funny thing is I talk to people in their 30s who are getting started and making content and they're struggling. And I said, well, you have a 10-year head start on me because I didn't start until I was 42. And I don't understand this idea. Like, it's too late to start a new healthy program in your life, or to start exercising, or start eating better, or start to be kind, or to be generous. It's never too late. If you look at all the tycoons of the 20th century, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, they made a S-ton of money. And towards the end of their lives, they started to think about, like, what did my money do for me? And so they were busy being captains of industries, destroying other businesses, and just becoming titans and tycoons in the process. But then all of a sudden they started to buy Central Park and give it back to the city of New York. And they started to create schools and universities and museums. They started philanthropy and art programs and art institutions and things of that nature. So it's never too late. If you say it's too late, then it's too late. But if you don't believe it's too late, it's never too late.
Okay, I love that. Very, very positive mindset. You did mention on your post on LinkedIn talking about this fog. You're referring to Daniel Priestley, giving a metaphor of this like
Yeah.
AI fog coming in, and we're all planes, we're taking off. Is there a point where we can actually be left behind, like you said, or it is never too late? Like, is it just going to be harder and harder to be known and create a personal brand as we wait longer? Can you expand
Yeah,
on that?
I can. So I don't know about you, but if you were early in on Twitter, you probably had a pretty big following.
Hmm.
And for a period of time, it was relatively easy to get a following on Twitter, and then became really hard. When the platform hits critical mass, it becomes much harder. There's more competition. I don't consider myself an OG on YouTube because the OGs are the ones who were there day one making content, the vloggers and the people who are experimenting with comedy style video content. And I'm an early adopter in terms of educational content from a professional, but it is harder to grow an audience. It is. And there was that point in which YouTube introduced shorts, and we made shorts, and we grew almost 1 million followers in a matter of months. And that was freaking awesome. And now it's like, I'll make shorts and no one will watch them. So inevitable thing that happens is when things are good, more people get in.
Hmm.
Then all these platforms have to figure out how to distribute the content in a democratic way so that more people feel empowered to create content, because that's how their platform thrives. And so they democratize all that and they give that content to everybody. That means the inherent advantages that I had no longer are advantages. So the same can be said about building up a personal brand, that if you're early in on the game, it's going to be much, much easier. That's what Priestley's talking
Hmm.
about. So for people who don't understand this, he over dinner has explained this idea. He goes, imagine that there are all these planes on the tarmac waiting to take off, and they're waiting for control tower to say, you're all clear, you're good to go. And then this fog starts to come in, this marine layer, and it's like, we can't take off if we don't know what's above us. It's a danger to everybody. And that fog is called the AI. And the fog is still thin, it's still coming in, we can see it. So if we get off the
Hmm.
ground sooner, it'll be much easier. And he says, in contrast, all the people who have been busy building up a personal brand, becoming a key person of influence, already at the 30,000 foot cruising altitude, it's, I don't know if you know this, but once you go above the cloud layer, there's less turbulence and it's always sunny up there unless you're on the other side of the planet. And it's a whole different perspective once you're above the cloud layer. And so those people who are already above will have a really easy time while the fog of AI comes in. That happens a lot. And we can see this in the content now. You can see it on YouTube. You can
Hmm.
see it on LinkedIn. You can see it on Instagram. There's so much AI-based content, either about AI or using AI to create content so the person doesn't even do anything. So we've given everyone the ability to 5, 10, 100x their content output
Hmm.
while making it easier for them. So it's become so noisy. And the clearest example I can point to this right now is in your inbox, your emails. It's becoming harder for me to auto delete messages because they're crafted in a way that I think, wait, do I need to respond to this? It's slowing me down and is really messing up my inbox. For the first time in a really long time, I don't want to open up email anymore because there's all these people trying to sell me some kind of program.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So it seems like the behavior of how we connect is changing. I know I've heard you've mentioned that um, like high touch point experiences is now kind of the new thing,
Yes.
and we're maybe just gravitating to just in-person meetings, maybe because there isn't a lot of trust out on the internet. It could be generated by AI. We don't know if it's authentic, if it's real. So what are you doing to navigate through this to set yourself apart, or even what would you suggest to other people to even position ourselves and go off above the fog in establishing these yeah, and positioning us to stand out in all this AI noise?
Okay. First, I want to give a quick shout out to Matthew Bird. He's here. He's going fishing with us and helping to organize the fishing trip. So, what's up, Matthew? See you in a little bit. Okay. In-person experiences. Talk about high-touch experiences. So they're saying, and maybe these are like these clickbait titles. High-ticket offers are dead, but high-touch offers or high-touch experiences are very much alive.
Hmm.
And let's try to understand that. So when we're consuming a piece of content, we're getting hit by visuals like lights, light particles emitting and hitting our eyes, and our eardrums are being stimulated by the sounds in which we hear. But as far as I know, those are just two of the five senses that we have, the ones that I'm aware of, right?
Hmm.
And so when we get into a room full of people, without words being spoken, people often describe it as like could feel the energy crackling through the air, or the hairs. I don't have hair on my arm, but the hairs on my arm or my neck stood up, and that's activating a different sense, or it's accumulation of a lot of different senses.
Mm.
First of all, we just feel the heat of the room. Like you and I, we emit heat, and if you get into like the crazy science of it is, I think particles are shooting off your body all the time and colliding with particles from other
Hmm.
people on some kind of atomic subatomic level. So we're exchanging atoms all the time. Now I don't want to get too deep into that, but and if you say something and you're and sound is energy being transmitted through the air and it's hitting me. So when people say, "Oh, that hit," those are bars and that resonates with me. It's because the resonance is a term designed to describe sound. So it's vibrating within me. And so we're on the same wavelength. There's a
Love
lot of
it. I love it.
terminology, right, around sound and frequency and
Hmm.
wavelength. And so if you and I are in a room together, you may not even want to say something, but I can feel you shifting in your chair a little bit. And then I can hear that sound a little bit, or I can see the shift of your body language. I'm like, wait, Josh, you want to say something? Does this not connect with you? And I can see like maybe you looking up
Mm.
or furrowing your eyebrows. I'm like, oh, he's really thinking about something. AI is not doing that for us right now because there's no AI shifting in body language. There's no nuance. It does what it's told to do. And so in that moment, you may feel seen and heard. And you're like, yeah, I'm still formulating my thoughts, Chris, and I wanted to ask you this one thing.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, in that room of 50, 100, 200 people, it's just a conversation between two people. So in my mind, what happens is the lights in the room dim, and there's a little spotlight on you, there's a little spotlight on me, and we're going to connect. And then all the other sounds become white noise for me,
Hmm.
and I zero in on who you are and what you're talking about, and I try to understand not just the words that you're saying, but what your heart is saying to me. And I process both, and then I try to figure out, I think this is what Josh is asking for, and I want to see if I can give it to him in this moment. I think that's really
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
And that's where AI is not going to replace that for now.
Yeah, until we've created
Yeah,
superhumans.
until replicants come,
Yeah,
and then it was like, oh, Josh, you're not even here. You're like, nope. Shnick.
it's game over. Yeah.
It's a different game.
Interesting, very interesting. Can I ask a side question
Yeah.
to just like because I've seen you in person, your ability to I guess harness a lot of energy and especially in a room where there's so many people and being the person on the stage like that's a lot of pressure and of course you put in your reps, but could you share on like how you've built yourself to exert so much energy and emotions to the fact that like thousands of people in the room can connect with you and you can sustain it at like a very long level too.
Okay. I'd be happy to talk to you about this for as long as you want, by the way. It's not something I get to talk about a lot.
Okay,
And if you enjoy it, I'll talk about it. Okay.
yeah, I'd
That's
love
just the
to.
rule of thumb. Whatever your heart wants, we go
Sounds,
there.
sounds
I
good.
don't see my role so much as the one who creates energy, but I'm just a person managing and manipulating energy. And so I'm a giant parabolic mirror or dish to the room.
Mm,
The first thing that I do is the most important thing, which is to frame what we're going to talk about and to set the tone and intention. And I have still many miles to go in becoming really, really what I think is great at it, right? So what I'm trying to do is direct, let's just say it's 1,000 people, because I'm going to be speaking in front of 1,000 people pretty soon. There's 1,000 people in the room who have diverse interests, different backgrounds and stories and levels of focus and energy. And I need for all of us to come together for a minute and see if we
hmm
can have some commonality. And I have to build that bridge, and I use words and images to build that bridge. And so for a minute, we can all come together and say, what if this had happened? And what if we could achieve this thing? What would that do for us? And is it worth investigating together? So I need buy-in. I'm asking for permission. Allow me to lead. Allow me to do what I'm going to do if this is of interest to you. And most people are very, very generous. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So all of a sudden, all of what we're doing, how different we are, we start to focus on the thing that I want us to focus in on. And then I just feed off the energy in the room. So if there's a little electrical, wavelength that's going through the room, I want to capture that, harness it, and redirect it back to the room. Now, the opposite can also be very true, where you're in a room full of people,
hmm
and it's like, oh, I don't want to be here, and what time is it anyways, and when is lunch? Gosh, the air conditioning is really loud back here. And then all of a sudden, I'm trying to harness and
Right.
channel that energy, and I can't because there's nothing there. Now, usually in a position like that, you have one of two things you can do. One, please don't do this, is to ignore it.
Mm.
And what people do is they just go forward like with their deck and what they're talking about, and no one's really that interested. They just march forward, so they're going to steamroll through this because that's all they know how to do. Number two, the preferred thing is to be grounded and present in that moment to say, I can see this doesn't seem to be of interest to all of you in the room. So let's move away from the deck and let's talk about things that would really help you,
Mm.
because I'm here to serve and I want to help. And if this is not of interest, let's do something different. Or maybe we just came back from lunch and it's really not that they're not interested, but their energy is just so low right now. And
hmm
so I can say, you know what? Y'all look a little tired right now. Why don't we just stand up and shake this off and like do some air squats or do something and make them feel a little bit uncomfortable so that they're like shaken up a little bit, like, oh yeah, okay, I got to get the
Get
sleep,
the energy
yeah,
going.
the sleep monster off
Yeah.
my back because I'm about to fall asleep. So we got to do stuff like that. So I'm hoping that whether you're speaking in front of 1,000 people, 100 people, or one person,
hmm
that you're very much connected to the person in front of you, not what you want to do, but what we want to do and what we're going to do together that's going to be valuable for both people.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so you've just to summarize, you have an initial intention,
Yes.
an agenda, or like your
Yes.
talk,
I have a plan.
but you don't stick to the script per se. You kind of improvise, and at the end of the day, it's really about being present and having people engaged like in the moment. And I think that's what keeps the event alive. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
So, like for example, if you say something and then the crowd or the audience starts to erupt in laughter, don't just move on to your next point. Let them roil in the laughter in the moment. You're like, oh, you guys find that funny? I got another one for you. You try again, and we're here to have a shared human experience in a large group. And why would I just cut that off short? Most times when people cut it off short, it's because they're still stuck to their agenda and they're uncomfortable with being perceived as funny or charming or interesting, which blows my mind. It's like, no, that's too big of a compliment. Let me just keep going on to point 3 and 4. I could care less. I can care less if I finish the deck or not. It doesn't matter to me. I'd like to finish it, but there's so many other things we can do together. And they'll remember and appreciate you for that, by the way.
Interesting. That's a
Yeah.
perfect segue to, because I want to talk about like authenticity. You've talked about it all along in your personal branding messaging. I think it's just like being real as opposed to putting up or even sticking to a script for yourself or how you want to look. Even for me right now, preparing for this interview, like I have a list of questions and my temptation is like, okay, I gotta, cover through all these questions I have. But if I'm in the moment, I can just improvise and share. So, can you speak a bit on, yeah, a little bit more on that, on like authenticity? And I want to also find a way eventually to loop in how AI gets tied into this.
Yeah. So what do I talk about around authenticity? Is there a question that you have or one that you want to channel for the community?
Well, I think okay. Well, I'll just kind of see if I can sprinkle in my question
Okay.
here. Like a lot of personal brands here, they're performing authenticity as if like authenticity is kind of like the new aesthetic, you know. And so how do brands or people be more real? And then also balance, like most personal brands have a business and they also want to sell, right? Or they have an agenda or whatever. They're trying to get the audience to do XYZ. So how do you balance, being really real and authentic and then also have an agenda at the same time? Like how do you personally navigate that line?
I don't know if you can, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I think when you are trying to serve two masters, you serve neither well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Game of Thrones fan. And so there's always a moment when there's a war or a battle, and they're like, you know what? I won't kill you. You can keep your titles and your land. Just swear fealty to me. Take the knee or bend the knee, and promise and swear that you will recognize me as the queen or the king. Cool. What happens when you make two promises to two kings or queens? You're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it comes in. Like imagine that you promise to be in two places at the same time. Like you're going to pick somebody up at 2:30 and then you're going to be somewhere else at 2:45, but the commute between those 2 points is more than 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes. Your level of stress and anxiety go way up.
Yeah.
I kind of think of that. Like if you show up to serve people, show up to serve people. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
sell your product, show up and sell your product. Because when you're trying to do one or the other and you mix the agendas up, it's really weird. I'll give you an example. So if I'm going to make a piece of content
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to deliver value, but the whole point of me delivering value is to get you to buy something,
Mm-hmm.
towards the middle or the end, I'm going to really push hard for this other thing. And then you're going to feel, wait a minute, I, weren't you just teaching me something? Like now we're going to get into the pitch. This happens a lot in person when people are pitching from the stage. Okay. They go up on stage, they're trying to teach you something, and you don't feel like you're getting the best part. You're just getting a tease of it. And then there's this massive call to action. There's a QR code. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel manipulated right now. I wish you were just clear about that. If I went up on stage and said, you know what, y'all, I'm going to tease you with 2 or 3 things in hopes that you'll become really interested. And this is just a way to test if you're interested. And if you are, I've got this whole program, but we'll talk about that in a second. Just be super clear about it and just be transparent. The other thing is, let's say you're out to sell something and I want you to enroll in my program. I want you to buy my book, or I want you to sign up for the newsletter. And I try to do that, but then I'm like, oh, I don't really give you a clear pitch as to why you should buy
Mm-hmm.
or sign up. And then I start to diffuse it with lots of other weird value things. It just becomes very confusing for everybody. So I think, you know what? Whatever it is your job and your agenda, just do that and you'll be totally okay about it. The reason why is this. I think when there are unspoken things in your mind that you're thinking about, preoccupied about, it diminishes your capacity to communicate clearly, and it diminishes your intelligence and your ability to be in the moment.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example right
Okay.
now. Okay. I don't know if you can tell, I've got this zit on my nose. You see that thing right there? Okay.
Very nice.
The reason being is because about a week ago, I came back from VidCon and I was really sick. and I was in bed for about 3 days. My bones were achy,
Hmm.
and I was sore from just being in bed for that long. A consequence of this is I was super low energy. I didn't really have the motivation to get up and shower and wash my face. So I was like really low maintenance mode. And this giant zit popped up on my nose. I'm like, dang it, it always happens if I don't take care of my skin. I have oily skin. Okay. Now, if I don't tell you about this and if it were really bugging me,
Hmm.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I wonder if everybody can see the zit. What are they thinking? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just thinking a million different things. But if I just tell you, there it is,
Okay.
it doesn't bother me.
Right.
So my whole thing is, if you think it, say it. That way it doesn't become this thing that's tugging away at your brain and processing power.
Mm.
So if you think your shoes are ugly or mismatched, it's like, I did a funny thing today. I wore the wrong shoes to the event, and get it out there.
Right.
That way you're
Right.
not constantly thinking, does everyone notice that I'm wearing the wrong shoes to this event? And it's going to
Mm.
eat at you the entire night. So when things are negative and they're kind of festering inside of you, just speak it. Now, when you do this, something weird happens. Instead of people clowning on you, they're like, well, yeah, cool. They're cool with it. I'm cool with it. They're comfortable. I'm comfortable. And in fact, they never talk about it again and they move on and they
Mm.
think, wow, what a clear, direct, honest, transparent person that is. And I think I might like them. Let me go talk to them. What shoes should we be wearing to this kind of event, Chris? I'm like, yeah, it's this other pair that I just had a brain fart and we can have a really productive, fun conversation about that. You see?
Love that. It's like addressing the elephant in the room, speak it out, and like freeze your mental real estate so that you can actually focus on the thing that really matters and be present.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I want to follow up on that because a lot of us don't do that. And I'm wondering if we can dive a little deeper. Why is that? I mean, so I have a thing where like it's a kind of a universal truth and all of us experience it, is that we have this issue of looking good. Like we
Yes.
want to look good. And so because we want to do that, we don't bring up like the ugly side or all these things. So why do you think we have that? And what can we do to have this level of self-assurance that we can just, accept the ugly side of us or whatever, and then just be fully authentic and
Yeah.
be here?
Let's dive a little deeper. Let's unpack this here.
Mhm.
I'm not so sure we all want to look good, but we want other people to perceive that we look good, which is a different
Mhm.
thing. Looking good is for you. The perception of looking good by other people, that's for other people. And we can use like a very broad term here, looking good. What does looking good mean? It means appearing smart,
Mhm.
saying the right things, being super charming and witty and fun, being the life of the party, being humorous, all those kinds of things. We want people to being a person of high value, somebody who's really confident. So when we desire that, it means that we lack that
Mhm.
because I don't desire to be things I already am. I already am. Like I'm Asian. I wear glasses. I don't desire. That's just what it is. It is. Okay.
Right.
And so it's this gap that exists between how we see ourselves versus how we want to be perceived that creates all this inner turmoil. And so we get into this very performative thing and we act as if. And you,
Mhm.
you can see this happening a lot when people walk into a room and they want to make sure that everybody perceives them a certain way. So they'll say they'll brag about something they've just done. Because I want you all to see me like I deserve to be here. Like, oh, yeah, I just exited out of my company for X gazillion million dollars. Or, yeah, I just gave the valet the keys to my Ferrari or something. And you're like, how's that relevant to this conversation right now? Why would you do that? But people do this all the time. They do that because they think by saying that their credentials are established, and so people treat them differently. And they will, but for the wrong reasons. And for the most part, when you're around mature, centered people, that is a way to turn them off, to say like I think you're dealing with an inferiority
Mhm.
complex
Mhm.
or trying to be superior, and it's artificial and it's not cool unless we're literally talking about cars and you're like, oh, I had this experience, and then you could talk about that. But otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like an attempt to overcompensate for lack.
100%.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to like stay on the the main topic here because I know we can veer off and say,
Yes.
well, how do we like overcome our inner demons and the things that we're not happy with ourselves? So
Yeah.
it, if you have something short to answer to that, that'd be great. But um, I'm aware at the time it is half hour in,
Yes.
and we do have some guests to come in to
Yes. Should I
ask
bring
some
them up?
questions, some attendees. So Taylor and Eliza, if you guys are watching, please request to join. And maybe Taylor, we can bring you up first. And as we're waiting,
Yeah.
I don't know if is she getting on there?
No, not yet. I
Okay.
see 6 or 7 people raising their hands already, but okay,
Okay.
there's a new one. Let's see if this is one of those people here. Taylor
Yes.
Marie. Okay, I'll accept.
All right.
So do you want one at a time
Yeah.
or get everybody on? Okay,
Yeah.
one
Let's
at
do
a
one
time.
at a time.
Taylor. Okay. I'll answer a quick question. People ask me how old I am. I'm 53 years old.
All
Hi
right.
guys.
Hey,
Hello. Hi,
Taylor.
Taylor.
How are you?
Excellent.
Do you want me, Josh, do you want me to just like jump in or be
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, for context, Taylor is flying in from Arizona to Vancouver for the event.
yeah,
So I think you're gonna
Wow.
be our like first big special, like, big traveler for the event. So that's gonna be awesome.
yeah, I'm excited. Super excited. It's first time in Vancouver too, so
Oh, you'll love it.
excited.
Nice.
Cool.
Take it away,
All right,
Taylor.
I have some questions. Um, I guess we'll start off not as deep. Um, so a lot of designers are using AI to make things
Yeah.
faster, but speed does not build your reputation. Your judgment does. So how do you think designers today can use AI without like flattening their taste or becoming creative, like having their creativity just forgettable?
Okay. Taylor, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Does using a tool change me?
I think it changes your tone, your aesthetic,
So let me
because it
ask you a question. I'm going to challenge some of your thinking here.
Mhm.
Are you a
I
designer?
am
Okay. Did you study design in school?
ecology,
Okay. So you studied ecology?
psychology.
Psychology. Okay. So you didn't study design. So this is mostly self-taught then?
Yeah, but about 16 years worth
For
of
context,
experience.
she's pretty senior. She's worked at Meta and Amazon. So just
And
to
Netflix.
give you some context, and
Okay,
Netflix.
wonderful.
Yeah, throw
Okay.
all the ends in there, all the things.
Wonderful. So when you use tools like Photoshop, does it increase or decrease your taste level?
It doesn't, but it's a blank slate.
Yeah, but
Like a
this is a
typewriter.
blank slate, and this is a tool. And if I draw and write with this, I don't think it changes my thoughts. It doesn't change my aesthetic. It's just a way for me to express myself, sometimes slowly and sometimes quickly. But
Right.
so I have this whole theory, right? Like, yes, using different tools will change the aesthetics because tools have inherent constraints and they have ability to do certain things. So if my art professor, Lou Danziger, would say the fastest way to change the way things look is to just change the tool. So if you use a rapidograph pen, use a brush. If you use a brush, use a stick. If you use a stick, use a palette knife. And that will change because it changes the marks that you can create. If we abstract that into the digital space, yeah, Photoshop can have a look, but if your intention is to make it look hand done with enough effort and scanning of hand done elements, it will look hand done.
Right.
And so the problem here, I think, is the tools, especially in the digital age, they reveal more the person and their intention faster. So if you're not a good designer, if you're not a good creative, you haven't really thought your ideas through, you'll do whatever is easiest. And so it lures you into it hypnotizes you into doing things that are just really easy. And you could fix it, but you're like, nah, kind of lazy. Because you know what? You're a lazy designer. I hate to put that label onto it. The tool didn't make you lazy. It wasn't like got you in a half Nelson, like, yo, stop. Okay, I cry uncle. I'll make it really ugly. No, that was you. That was just
Right.
you. And so I think the problem is we have an unprecedented amount of power and capability in our mobile phones to make images to video and everything in between, that it just gives more of those amateurs the opportunity to look like a professional. But I'm
Yeah.
sure you can tell the difference as I can.
So how would you How would you use the tool differently?
I would just use it to make my ideas, and I would just be more intentional about my ideas. So I'll give you an example. Since we're both more senior in our design careers, I would say that I spend 80 to 90% of my design process thinking, writing, reading, and researching, and 10% in making.
Yep.
Because we know how to make stuff pretty easily. And the question isn't so much how to make it, it's what to make and why I should make it in the first place. And so people who don't understand this, especially young people, are like, oh, they're doing nothing right now. They're just wasting time and procrastinating. Well, young friend, it's just because you don't know how a senior person works. We know how to make stuff already. Now, the great part of it is I used to be able to whip stuff up in Photoshop pretty easily. Now I can do it even faster using a combination of Firefly or Midjourney or some other program and smash them together. I'm like, dang, that is freaking really good, right? I can make my own textures now, my own wallpapers. And I was like, that would take forever in Photoshop painting out edges. Now I can try ideas out faster. And I like that. So that's where I think the power of AI and these generative tools can really help us.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
We cool so far, Taylor?
Yeah.
Okay,
that was
cool,
awesome.
cool.
That was awesome. All right. I have another question.
Yes. I like your questions, by the way.
If you completely disappeared from the internet tomorrow,
Okay.
what would you want people to remember about you as a designer?
Ooh.
Wait, am I dead?
You're dead. Well, maybe,
You just said off the internet.
You just disappeared off the internet.
Well, that don't mean nothing.
But what would you want people to remember? So you're dead. You're dead.
Okay.
What's your legacy?
I went
As
from
a
losing
designer,
internet control
not
to like
family,
death.
not like you as a human, a whole human, just your designer realm.
Okay, so if I cease existing tomorrow, outside of my immediate circle of family and friends, what is it I want to be known for? Like the legacy that I leave behind?
As a designer. So you don't need
As
to...
a designer.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use Herbert Simon's definition of design. He's a Nobel laureate, right? So he was written about in Marty Neumeier's book. And he said something, a designer is a person who devises courses of actions to go from an existing condition or situation to an improved one.
Wow.
So I'm not going to use it in the, I get a lot of trouble for this. I'm not going to talk about design in the design ghetto, which is about aesthetics. I'm going to talk about changing things, systems and ideas. And so I would like to be known for a person who did their best to try to change the education system so that it was more accessible, transformative for as many people as possible.
That's awesome. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
What else you got?
I mean, I have so many questions, but I think there's somebody else, Josh, unless you want to ask my third question.
Let's do
I think
three. Let's do three. Can we do
Yeah.
three and then we'll move on to the next person? I like three is the magic number.
Cool. All right. So AI is helping us make things scale.
Yes.
Branding is what helps us kind of sell. What's going to keep designers' work felt? What's going to give it that like staying power, especially as we move forward with more AI tools? Like, what keeps the emotion?
Okay, this is fantastic. I'm going to abstract it for a second and I'll bring it back to AI and design. Today, more so than ever, it seems like there's a lot of big budget films being produced that are just pieces of junk. It's a hot mess. I was on YouTube last night. I was watching like the biggest flops, the 5 biggest flops in 2025. And some of it was just scary. Like it should have been a hit. And they spent 100, 200, 300 million dollars making it, but it's just a piece of junk. So it's just telling you something that despite having a famous director, a great script, and an adaptation from a book, A-list actors, just the best VFX team, the art and craft of emotional messages is still very, very difficult, despite having every resource available to you. So if we just take that and accept that, yes, this should have worked, but it didn't. Like, I think one of those movies was Snow White recently, like considered to be Disney's biggest flop ever.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. And I haven't seen it. I'm not curious about seeing it. And there are other movies out there. I don't want to pick on Disney, but it's like, what happened here? How did this happen? Because I think we get stuck in patterns of thinking and behavior that to do something good requires a lot of energy and effort. And I think we go into autopilot mode just way too quickly. Like, oh, the formula is do X, Y, and Z, and it works. And they keep following that formula. And one of the examples that is being talked about quite a bit right now is how the Star Wars franchise is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Andor series and has been like a wake-up call for a lot of people that you can actually make a serious film for adults in the Star Wars universe that's canon, but is a totally different kind of movie. There's no happy endings, and I cried, and I'm scared, and I'm like, and I haven't felt like that way since a kid when I watched A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So I like it when outsiders or somebody who has a fresh perspective on how to build a world without using lightsabers and magic that can live in that world. And it's just really, really cool to see. Now they have a new problem because I think the story they told themselves before was we must always do this. The problem is we've done something else. It cost us a lot of money, but it was good and it was worth it. I think that's the magic that some designers, not all designers, can bring to a brand, to a marketing campaign, to a user experience design, to a product design, that the people in charge, these executives who make all the decisions, fall into patterns of thinking and behavior that if we just do what we did before, it'll just work, right? Sometimes, but not all the time. And so to do something good requires a level of risk tolerance, to have the right team, and to be brave enough to let them try and fail and allow them to do it again and again until it works out.
Yeah.
Now, Apple is one of these companies that gets a lot of credit for being super innovative, but its cemetery, its graveyard is filled with failed products and ideas. But they don't take that one failure as a final failure, and they'll just keep making more, and eventually they'll find a hit. They don't give up right away, and I like that about them. So back to AI, back to us. How do we make things have lasting power that can build an emotional connection with people? It's still the same thing, because you know why? Because people are fickle and unpredictable, and emotion is the opposite of logic.
Yep.
So you can logic your way into it, but it still probably won't work because they're on different spectrums. So this is where I think we have to just be willing to try more and to understand that all these tools just make things go faster, not better. And we really need to be more intentional when we create things.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, so with that,
Take me out now.
okay, we'll gracefully tuck you away back into the audience. Thank you very much,
In a
Taylor.
couple weeks.
Look forward to seeing you really soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you back in Vancouver.
Thanks.
Okay, and then
Yes.
Eliza should be
I don't know how to
next.
remove people, so this is going to
Me
be a little
neither.
tricky here.
And Taylor, maybe you can stick around. You
I don't know
should be
what I'm
looking
doing.
for Eliza Trendiak at Eliza Trendiak if she's there. If not,
Shoot. I'll just add people. I don't know what I'm doing. Eliza. I see her. Accept. Okay, so
great.
Taylor, hang out until I can
Yeah.
figure out how to remove people.
I think I didn't work for Meta at all or anything.
Somebody here should know.
Don't.
All
There we
right.
are.
Hey,
Hello.
how's it going?
Excellent.
Good. Thank you
Welcome.
so much for having me today. I'm so excited for the event in Vancouver. My husband went to your event the last time you were in Vancouver, and I swear he was like riding that high for weeks afterwards. So he's like, I'm buying us tickets this time. So I'm really excited to
Wonderful.
come in person. Okay, so kind of touching back on what Josh was mentioning earlier about authenticity. So for myself, I have a personal brand, but I also have a product-based business. And I'm one of those people that I have no problem being like authentic on my personal brand about I'm a mom of toddlers, my life is chaotic, I post about my failures, the behind the scenes stuff, but my company is like an accessible luxury beauty brand. So how do I kind of bridge the gap between this very kind of like real unpolished human being and then having a brand that I want to be aesthetic, that I want people to see as like a higher end brand? And sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect. Like, am I as a human too messy to be like the face of, this basically this beauty brand? Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're saying you as a human being are a little messy
Yes.
and sometimes a little too effing clean? No, I'm just kidding. That was a
Yeah,
Lola
yeah.
song. I was just gonna get into it, but I couldn't pull it off. Ah, I got to work on my lyrics and my delivery. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. Okay, okay. So you have your corporate brand, and then you
Yeah.
have your personal brand.
Yeah.
Here's what I recommend that you do. First of all, we will silo off your personal brand. You do you. You be as messy as you want to be, as human as possible, because that's what really connects people. And then when we get into the corporate side, we can't bring all that stuff over. So what I found that works for me is that I have someone else scrape what I'm doing, find out the very most valuable things, and then bring it back over. And then not sanitize it, but package it.
Okay.
Package it like within the brand tone, look, and feel of this higher end thing that you're doing. Because what I do is like super raw and maybe not ready for prime time. And if you scrape and just pull out the very best, it still retains your voice, your DNA, but it's filtered through that brand. And I think that's what I find to be most successful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I love that. That is so helpful. And it actually segues perfectly into my next question, which is, for the first time ever, I'm starting to outsource a bit of my content creation because I am a one woman show, and I just can't produce as much content as I would like to. So do you have any advice, tips, tricks for making sure that your ethos and your vision doesn't get lost when you're kind of handing this over to someone else?
Yes. You have other employees, other staff members, right?
No,
You don't.
the brand is just myself, and
Okay.
then I've hired contract help
Mm-hmm.
for like some content creation. And right now I mostly just work with independent contractors, but I'm doing everything else myself.
Okay, this is wonderful. All right. This is a general way on how you can transfer responsibilities to other humans. Okay. So we'll just first talk about, forget about social media or writing or anything, just like I need a young designer or somebody to do what it is that I do so that you can buy back your time. So I usually use a multi-step process. The first part is just shadow me. It's the shadowing phase, which is don't do anything, don't say anything, just watch, write notes. And at the end of whatever period of time, after the call, after the first day, after whatever, I want you to ask me questions. So you're listening for things that may or may not be clear to you, and I need you to create the playbook for whatever the task is. And then at the end of the day, or whenever it is, we get together and we compare notes, and soon you'll get a feel if this person is really asking the right kinds of questions. Right? So 70% they should pick up intuitively, 30% they need some help with, or 20%, and then 10% like the things they can't even see because they're just too young. Right. They're like, here's the question I would have asked if I were you, and then here's how I'm going to answer it, and then they start to do that. Then there's this hybrid phase where you give them tasks to do with lots of supervision. So it's 70% them, 30% you, right? So I need to check on everything. Like quality control is just really paramount to me, and we have to hit the standard, not my standard, but the standard, the standard that we promise our clients. And the last phase is when they're doing 90% of the work, 95% of the work with very little supervision from you. And we're just going to do occasional spot checking until the spot checking becomes zero. And then the dynamic flips in which we say, only come to me when you're not clear as to what to do. Because we can't plan for everything. And you're building quite literally the playbook for how to do your job. And when you get really good at it, I'm going to expect you to train the next person. So we're going to bump you up. This gives them a lot of motivation. There's a path forward. I love it. So I'm a designer 1, and then I become designer 3, and then a senior designer, art director, creative director, and there's a whole path forward for them. And they get really excited about that kind of stuff. Now, let's bring it back to social media. You can say, like, here's a live that I did, or here's a lecture I gave. What do you think would be the most valuable things to talk about? Let's just do a quick test. Scrape this and then figure out what to write on the brand side and figure out the design of it. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to check lots of supervision. Like, I don't think this matches the right tone. Either it's missing the point or it feels off brand for us, or design wise, it's a little bit messy. And instead of trying to do all in one post, let's make this 10 posts to make sure that it's digestible for people. And you'll know when you have a winner, and it's not easy to find something like this, but you'll find out really soon if you got one or not.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I also just say my husband's in the comments and he's like, "You're not a one-woman show. I do your photography." That's
right now the husband's dead to us. It's just us. You're like, all the contributions, like, nope, it's just me. Yeah, but he's like, he's trying to prove something here.
Yeah,
we see you. We see you, honey.
Yeah. And then my last question is, so my long-term goal for my corporate brand, for my company, is I want to grow it and sell it in about 5 to 7 years. So do you have any advice on how to build, it's still a founder forward brand, but do you have any advice for how to continue building that without making it so tied to me personally that it becomes less attractive to a potential buyer when I eventually step away?
Yeah. I'm not a mergers and acquisition kind of guy. So the first thing I will tell you to do is listen to Two Bobs, follow David C. Baker. He helps a lot of professionals value their company and figure out how to exit. If your intention is to sell your company in a certain amount of time, this is a great time to be thinking about it, because you have to design the company such that it's the most attractive to a potential buyer. Mm-hmm. Let's go over some basics, the little that I know, okay? So that I don't leave you just dry and say, go find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Number one is you have to make sure your books are nice and clean, that there's a lot of separation between personal expenses and business expenses. And so you want to be accurate. I don't want you to puff it up like, oh, it looks so profitable, but it's not mm-hmm. really. What are people really buying when they buy a business? They're buying a process. They're buying a book of business, meaning the clients that you currently work with. And the thing that I know how to generate in terms of the things that create the biggest value for an exit is to have subscriptions. Mm. So if there is a retainer subscription where people are buying from you predictably, like across a period of time, that takes away a lot of the risk.
Right.
And so when you have subscribers to whatever business it is, we clearly can understand it doesn't even really need you. And right. You need to have key employees built into the business that they can hire as well. So the last time I was offered money for my business, no one wanted to join that company. And they're like, we need to have at least one person, Chris. I'm like, yeah. And you want this person. Yeah. And his name is Matthew. Yeah. Matthew. Ah. And Matthew's like, I don't want to go work for them, Chris. I'd rather stay here. I'm like, oh, there's no deal without you. Because there's a book of business, there's a portfolio, there's a process in place. We didn't have subscriptions, so that became a problem. But they were buying talent, and they were buying a name. They can have the name, but they need talent to go with it. And so that was why that deal did not happen. And that's how Matthew cost me $1 million. But I'm not bitter at all. I just want to put that out there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
I think that's it. So I don't know how to remove you, so you'll have to like somehow figure out how to remove yourself.
For sure.
Maybe I click up here and figure this out. Oh, I do know how to do this.
Okay.
Boom. Okay.
Chris,
thank you very much.
I wonder, we do have one potential, maybe. Okay. If there is a Caleb T design in there, we can bring him in. If not, I have one question left to wrap us up, and then I have a fun lightning round to end the live stream.
Okay. I don't see a Caleb.
Okay. No worries.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, we were talking about, you saying, there's a lot of high production content out there now. So this question is more on like trust, creating trust. So as AI makes it easier to create like polished cinematic high production content, the new appeal, it seems like we're talking about, is to start trusting things that are maybe like on the opposite. That's like imperfect, raw, unfiltered, things like that. What do you think truly makes someone trustworthy and distinct in this new era? Like, what are the elements?
Yeah, I think you have to understand something, everybody. Depending on the platform or the channel that you're on, you have different expectations. I don't want to go on Netflix or Apple or Hulu or whatever and just consume poorly written, poorly scripted, poorly acted, and cheap VFX. I want high production. That's what I paid for. Okay. So, and when we're watching commercials too, I'm like, yeah, it needs to have a level of craft to it. That's why advertisers spend so much money making these 30-second commercials. The mistake is to say, like, I'm going to go on YouTube and Instagram and try to do that kind of craft. That actually creates a distance between you and the audience. And I think I read somewhere recently on Instagram that, like, if you want your videos to pop, here's what you need to do. This is pretty strange, is get one of those little mics, and hold it here
Hmm.
and shoot yourself on a green screen, because that's the language of how people on this platform communicate now.
Mm.
And so this is a detriment to me, because I'm used to having professional shotgun mics and hiding everything, so I sound really good. But this says I'm actually recording. This is a real human, because
Hmm.
you can remove this, and it creates an intimate thing. But that's the language of today on this platform. And the
Okay.
green screen is so that you can put whatever random thing that you're talking about behind you. I have all those tools. I just don't do that because I'm still sometimes stuck in I need to make this look good. And there's a
Okay.
level of craft I want to put into it. And that's the very thing that could potentially be getting in the way of me and the audience. And so you're
Mm.
going to start to see content from us that's going to look and sound different than what I've done the last 5-10 years. I'm doing man on the street interviews. I've done them.
I'm
I've recorded
excited to see
4.
that.
They're like wild, dude. They're so wild. And it's not perfect, but it's done, and we'll get that out there. And I'm going to continue to try to use different formats. And I think this is another thing we all need to be super hyper aware of as we're building our personal brand. Take inventory of what you're really good at doing. Okay? If you're really good at drawing, try to figure out a way that you can incorporate drawing into the content. If you're a good wordsmith, you know what? Just write the script and read it, record a voiceover, and shoot a lot of B-roll that's really sexy. I have some examples and of where I'm seeing people. I don't even see their faces necessarily. They just do stuff, and I'm like, I like this. This is good. This is soothing to me. There are videos where people don't write and don't speak, but they're just really good at mowing lawns. And so they set up a camera somewhere up high and they just show them mowing the lawn. And it's so satisfying to see it like go from wild and out of control and unkept to like, woo, that looks really good. So there's a type of content for every type of creator. I think you need to find a format that works really well for you.
Okay.
So for me personally, I've looked at all our content, and I find the ones that work best are ones where I'm working with real people in a situation where I have zero control over, and I have a marker in my hand somewhere usually. And when we can argue about something, I can't manufacture that. Unfortunately, not everyone wants to show up and argue with me, so I can't have that kind of fire content. But I want to create the conditions in which that's most likely to happen, right? Invite them into the studio, pick a topic that's polarizing for people, and then invite some of the most vocal, stubborn, emotional people and hope that we can start a fire. If we can, that's going to work out for me. But that's how I like to do things. Now, some people don't want to be confrontational. They don't think well on their feet. So I'm going to play to my strengths, and I encourage each and every single person, forget about the template that you're trying to hit. The template is you. Figure out your template and just lean into that.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. All right. So if you're down, I have 10 lightning round questions just to end us off
Okay.
fun. You okay
We
with
can do
that?
that. Yeah.
All right.
But before we do that,
All right.
I'm going to answer just a couple of quick questions. Number one, this is recorded. I will figure out how to save it, and hopefully I don't mess it up. Sometimes I mess it up. You can watch this in replay. Josh is Canadian. I'm going to be in Vancouver really soon, and I like to go out to the real world and meet real people and have real conversations. So if we can be real with each other, that's what I want to have happen. And so this is happening when again, Josh?
July 26th.
July 26th. It's on a Saturday. I'm going to be coming back from a fishing trip, so I'll be a little bit suntan and a little crispy, but really happy. So I hope to see you there, everybody.
Awesome.
Okay, go ahead. Let's ask it.
All right. So this is either A or B, so you just answer your preference.
Okay.
All right, we'll start with the easy one. Slides or whiteboard?
Whiteboard.
Okay.
That was a tough one.
Polished or raw?
Polished.
Okay. Build in public or build in silence?
Build in public.
Art school or YouTube university?
YouTube.
Instagram or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Be the first or be different?
Be different.
AI enhanced or human made? Ooh.
AI enhanced.
Okay. All right. Story or strategy?
Story.
Okay. Black t-shirt or white t-shirt?
Black.
build a brand or build a legacy?
Build a legacy.
Amazing. And that's it. That wraps up the lightning round with Christo. Thank you so much. If you're in Vancouver, please reach out and join him on July 26th, Mansion Nightclub. It's going to be an amazing time. And with that, we have wrapped up our live stream.
Thanks for doing this, Josh. Thanks for inviting people. And thank you all for showing up. If you haven't already done so, please give me a follow and also follow Josh Lowe. He's the other person on this. He's the other Asian on the camera. So please do that. Josh, those are not good choices, I have to say. It's not like salt or vinegar.
Yeah.
It's like seasoning or no seasoning or seasoning. I'm like, what? Okay, so we'll have to unpack that at some point in the future. Okay. Great seeing you, my friend. We'll see you. I'll see you in Vancouver next time.
See you soon.
Okay,
Thanks,
take
Chris.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.